Hello there and a happy new year. Welcome to the first teaching stream of 2023. Teaching Stream is the online teaching ministry of Melton Mowbray Baptist Church and is intended primarily to form the curriculum for our small groups. My name's Sam and I'm the minister at Melton Mowbray Baptist Church, and I want to welcome you to this, our first teaching stream of 2023. Over the coming weeks, we're going to be looking at the theme of Sabbath. And I can't wait to dive into it with you. So, without further ado, let's begin with our first in our series of teaching streams on Sabbath. Sabbath is the ancient Hebrew word for rest. That is what we're going to be looking at over the coming weeks. Sabbath. It's life in the practice of a 21st century Christian, how it might bless us, what observing a Sabbath might say about God, and how it could relate to us as the people of God, and why I believe it is such a powerful thing for us as Christians to introduce into our lives. Today, in this session, we're going to have a bit of a background on Sabbath, and then I'm going to explain why I'm introducing this as our teaching stream series this year with a bit of testimony. So Sabbath, as I said, is the ancient Hebrew word for rest. You'll find it in the Bible for the first time in Genesis 2 at the end of the first of the creation narratives that we find at the beginning of the Bible. Of course, God looks at everything that he's made, he says that it's good, and then on the seventh day, he rested. He Sabbath. Sabbath means to rest. Now, Sabbath ended up gaining a different meaning, which was the day of rest. It had a specific religious, cultic use within the life of the ancient Hebrew people, their religion, and then within the life of the Judeans and their religion. Sabbath became the day of rest. It was codified as a 24-hour period where no work was to be done amongst the people of God. That 24-hour period traditionally is from sundown on a Friday evening until sundown on a Saturday evening. And there were rules within the Bible and within the Talmud that actually dictated what it was that people were and weren't allowed to do on a Sabbath day. But primarily, they weren't allowed to do anything that constituted work, whether that was sowing, reaping, building, cooking over fire, lots of these things. In a modern Orthodox Jewish setting, people aren't allowed to turn on and off electrical equipment. Therefore, it is programmed in their houses on a Saturday for lights to come on by themselves at certain times. There is an Orthodox Jewish hospital in New York City where the elevator actually stops on every floor on a Saturday rather than anyone having to press the button to say where they want to go. All so that people can fully observe the Sabbath. Now, this to us as Christians might sound like it is very rigid and rules-based and has its life within the law. But of course, Sabbath is really, as Jesus says to the Pharisees, a gift to humanity instead of a gift from humanity to God. Why does God ask his people to observe the Sabbath? Well, he does so for their benefit. This benefit is clear to be seen by doctors and medical science in the world now today. Doctors recognise that regular periods of rest, and in fact, 1 day in every 7 is a really good way of doing this. 1 day in every 7 of rest is good for us. It helps our digestion. It protects our immunity. And the reason for that, of course, is because right there at the heart of the creation of the world, the universe, humanity, and everything, God put in place the pattern whereby on the 7th day he rested. He has put rest into the DNA of the earth and everything. We can see the idea of rest within the seasons. Winter is a time of rest. where seeds lay dormant in the ground, ready for the work of spring. We can see it in the life cycle of animals, plants, and we can just see it in creation around us. In farming, we can see it in fallow fields. The benefit of leaving a field fallow is that in the years around it, it can build a greater yield. This is why God tells his people to observe a Sabbath, because it is beneficial to us. It is beneficial to the Hebrew people. In the ancient world, the Sabbath was the thing that actually made the Jewish people extremely distinctive. Within the Roman Empire, they were given special dispensation for the Sabbath. And across the ancient world, it was this that set them apart from their neighbouring countries and the religions that surrounded them. That for one day in every seventh, nothing could be done in Judea. Of course, not working proclaims something profound and important about God. Every time we decide to stop our work, what we are saying is, we are not in control of this situation. We are not the ones who make the world spin. Rather, God is, and we are going to trust him to do it. When we put down our work, the world doesn't suddenly explode. No, God's sustaining power is still present and at work. So every time we rest, we proclaim that there is a God who is sustaining and making everything happen. And this is what is done throughout the Old Testament and into the time of Jesus. Christians have sometimes amalgamated the idea of Sabbath with the first day of the week. Of course, Sunday was the first day of the week, and the reason that Christians gather on a Sunday is because that is when Jesus rose from the dead. When the Roman Empire adopted Christianity as its religion, they made Sunday the Sabbath also, and they created laws for people not to do things. This was adopted across the Christian West, particularly whenever there was a particular religious fervour. In the time of Oliver Cromwell, obviously Sabbath laws were strictly enforced. Certain sports weren't allowed to be played on a Sunday, and of course it was legally mandatory for people to be in church. So Sabbath and the first day of the week has at times over the last 2,000 years been amalgamated into one. We can see kind of the hangover of that with some of our Sunday trading laws, the fact that shops aren't allowed to open for longer. And within many of our lifetimes, shops weren't allowed to open at all. Perhaps you, as a youngster or a child, would remember a time where you weren't allowed to watch television on a Sunday, or there were specific things that you weren't allowed to do if you were raised within a Christian family. I, as a 34-year-old, actually have always operated within a world where things were open and stuff was on a Sunday. That is not a countercultural idea for me. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about and working out as we go through this series is I would encourage us that we can separate out the idea of the first day of the week when we gather together as church and the idea of Sabbath as a 24-hour period of rest. The two don't have to be one in the same. And of course, for someone like myself who is leading a church, it would be impossible for them to be the same because Sunday is a big working day for me. Throughout this series, I'm going to be encouraging us to find ways to build Sabbath into our life. And I've already explained why I think we should do that, because God has told us to, and because it glorifies God, because it proclaims that God is in charge, and because it is good for us. I am trying, and have been trying, to build into my routine and my life a Sabbath rhythm. And after this break, I'm going to tell you about it. Like anyone who holds down a job and also has a young family and has responsibilities to a wider family, my time is very precious. I am extremely busy. Church life is busy. And managing an organisation that is growing at the rate that Melton Mowbray Baptist Church is growing is difficult and takes a lot of my thought process and takes a lot of my time. I realised about 7 months ago that it was taking up far too much of my time and had crept into all aspects of my life. My brain was saturated in what God was doing at Melton Mowbray Baptist Church, what I should be doing at Melton Mowbray Baptist Church all the time. And I was struggling to find ways in which to relate to my family healthily, and I was struggling to find ways to rest. One of the things that I began to do was I would start taking big chunks of time off. I needed holidays, so of course I took holidays. Me and the family would go away. The problem was I was so bad at resting that it took me a very long time to get my brain out of work mode and into rest mode, that actually I'd spend 3 days stressed out that I wasn't doing something. I'd finally get into the groove of it for one day, and then I'd start to think about the fact that we were going home and I'd waste the whole week. I've done a bit of reading around this, and I actually got some help. I spoke to some people. I said, look, this is a problem for me. I'm getting stressed out. I'm getting anxious. I'm not able to focus on family life in the way that I would want to. I'm not able to give people the time and my wholeness when I'm with them. What can I do? And someone very clever gave me a book to read and told me about the practice of Sabbath. Sabbath, the idea where you set aside a 24-hour period of time where you don't do any work. And it's not just work as in what I do for the church, which is my paid employment, or if you are a doctor, say, seeing people, or if you work in a factory when you're on the line, and all of these things. It is all work. So it also means actually the laundry or paying bills, the household work that we have to take seriously in terms of part of our work. Whenever we're doing that, we are not resting. So this idea of a 24-hour period where we put aside all our work for the purpose of resting, spending time together as a family and glorifying God. Now, I have to confess, I thought that I did that already because I always took my day off. Day off and Sabbath, I have now learned, is not the same thing. On a day off, we just busied ourselves with things to do. The children had clubs, we kept on top of the laundry, we do those little bits and pieces, we go shopping at the supermarket. Actually, I was not resting. So Rose and I and the girls set out on a mission to carving out some Sabbath. And in one of our sessions down the way, I'm going to talk about how we have to do that because it takes quite a bit of work. We need to make sure that within the week we are doing those extra bits of home maintenance, those extra bits of homework, and we need to make sure that we are actually fulfilling our work commitments, our employment commitments in time so that for 24 hours we can put them all down. Anyway, we are now in the process of actually living out the Sabbath rhythm. On a Friday evening, we share a meal together and have some special time. We watch a film, we close the curtains, and then throughout the Saturday, we do things together where we marvel at the wonder of God in His creation, where we talk with one another, where we play games. Yes, we watch a little bit of telly. Yes, we enjoy one another and we enjoy God. But we are specifically resting and enjoying the Sabbath. The reason I am introducing Sabbath in Teaching Stream and talking about it within the life of Melton Mowbray Baptist Church is the benefit that that has brought to me in terms of being able to work for God and being able to relate to my family and relate to all of those who are around me in a way that is a bigger blessing to them is so transformational. It has improved my life and it has improved the life of my family. And it's all rooted in a biblical principle that I had effectively been ignoring. I wonder, have you taken your Sabbath? When do you have your Sabbath? Are you really having Sabbath, or is it just a day off? My experience has been that when I began to introduce the Sabbath, I found it extremely stressful, and my body went into, oh no, I can't believe that you're doing this, because it was so out of the rhythm that I was used to, and it's so countercultural. One of the ways we are going to be able to proclaim Jesus into a hurting world is the fact that we're able to rest. We say, I don't need to be a 24/7 human doing, because I have a 24/7 God who releases me to be a human being. This proclaims the goodness of God. It proclaims who he is. And if we are rested, we find it easier to demonstrate the joy that we find in Christ. I'm really looking forward to this series, and I hope that you are too. I hope that this introduction has whetted your appetite, and that you are looking forward to going on this journey with me. I'm going to be really honest in these teaching stream series and tell you what's hard about trying to carve out Sabbath, what the benefits are, why we should be doing it, and how we go about doing it. And I'm going to tell you the ways in which I have failed and the ways in which I've had victory in this journey. But today, what I really want to tell you is, it is a big journey, but it's one that's worth thinking about and going on, because it will bless you, it will bless those that you love, it puts a smile on God's face, let's face it, he told us to do it, and it projects the goodness of God into a broken and hurting world, and that's what we all want to do. I look forward to speaking with you next week. God bless you, peace be with you. Ta-ra.